I am very high right now because I need to be high for this particular segment. If I wasn't high, then I don't think I'd be able to get through this, because every single year around this time of year, in the lovely month of June, aka Gay Pride Month, aka LGBTQIA plus Pride Month, there is always a horror of a discourse, like a rain cloud, like a storm cloud from a hurricane or a tornado or a monsoon that just slowly shades over Twitter as it arrives. And it's this discourse, this horrible fucking discourse, okay, about children and whether or not it is unacceptable for them to be present at overly sexual drag events. Last year was the Kink at Pride discourse. If, like, it was okay to have, like, kinky BDSM bondage leather stuff being shown off at a pride parade that could have children there. And now the discussion is being had specifically about whether or not it's okay to allow children to attend nightclubs, and in some cases it would seem strip clubs, that are hosting drag events. The person who basically sparked it all off was none other than Shoe0nHead. I don't like being gaslit about how totally not weird this is. Leftists, stop being scared to point out that the emperor has no clothes because you fear being called a reactionary. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the images here. Eventbrite. This event has ended. Drag the kids to Pride. Nicole O'Hara Munro. DJ Charlie Presh. Drag the Kids to Pride, a family-friendly drag show by Mr. 150 followers, a family friend. Okay, cool. There's a screenshot of it. There's some kids here. Then there's a drag queen dressed pretty sexually, doing what seems to be a pretty suggestive dance. Let's be real. Probably not something that, regardless of whether or not this was LGBT or whatever, you should probably be having kids see at this age. I mean, especially like these two. Yeah, it's not gonna lick itself on the wall. Big neon sign. The big, yeah, just having the kids right there in the middle of the room. Yeah, so, all right. I feel like this can be trashy or weird without it being pedophilic. There's nothing here that, like, suggests to me that it's pedophilic. It just seems trashy to me, you know? Like the type of people, it's like the types of people who bring their, like, 6-year-old kid to Hooters for his birthday and have him take a picture, like, with his, this is a real picture, by the way, and have him take a picture with his hand on the ass of one of the Hooters girls for his birthday photo. That's a real photo I saw on the internet, by the way. Like, that kind of stuff exists, and, like, you see that kind of shit, and you're like, that's trashy as fuck. And it's not cool. It's weird, and it's fucking cringe. And I don't disagree with Shoe0nHead for disagreeing with this kind of stuff in principle. I don't. I don't necessarily disagree with her not liking this in principle. My problem is, and I didn't learn about this until very shortly before stream, was that this whole thing would not have gotten as much attention as it did were it not for Shoe. And I'll explain why that's so important in a moment. So this is a quote tweet from Jack Saint. Thanks for fighting the good fight, Shoe. Always warms my heart to see online commentators inspire political change to help protect the children. The crazy part about the kids' drag show that was a nothing burger is that the loser that infiltrated it got less than 2K likes and Shoe got 59K and made it viral. So this is the person who infiltrated it. Photos from the Drag the Kids to Pride event at Mr. Bar in Dallas. 1,700 likes, 900 retweets, 300 comments. I don't like being gaslit about how this is okay. 56K, 11, so on, and it's probably gotten a lot more. Shoe, no doubt, signal boosted the fuck out of these images. These images will be used in countless conservative, far-right, reactionary, anti-trans videos, and Shoe0nHead is no doubt responsible for bringing them to the attention of many, bring these images to the attention of many of them. That is An apt criticism, no doubt. Texas House of Representatives Brian Slayton, District 2, for immediate release Monday, June 2nd. Representative Slayton says he will file a bill to ban drag shows in the presence of minors in Texas. Greenville, Texas, following several news stories and videos over the weekend in which underage Texas children were subjected to inappropriate sexual content by adults, State Representative Brian Slayton announced he plans to file legislation protecting kids from drag shows and other inappropriate displays as soon as the next legislative session begins. Representative Slayton issued the following statement. Oh my fucking God. Shoe0nHead is responsible for this. This is from June 6th. Shoe0nHead posting that is literally responsible for this being filed. One tweet from Shoe0nHead did this. That's going to be a hard one for her to defend herself from in the future when people criticize her for that. That she influenced an actual severely transphobic policy getting passed by her signal boosting. Part of a moral panic, a transphobic moral panic to convince people that LGBT people are predators. That's real rough. Has she even acknowledged this? If this gets passed, she's going to have to acknowledge this. The events of this past weekend were horrifying and show a disturbing trend in which perverted adults are obsessed with sexualizing young children. As a father of 2 young children, I would never take my children to a drag show, and I know Speaker Dade Phelan and the rest of the Republican colleagues wouldn't either. Protecting our own children isn't enough, and our responsibility as lawmakers extends to the sexualization that is happening across Texas. Representative Slayton has already announced that he will continue his fight to make sex change therapies on minors child abuse. Similar legislation was killed by Republicans in the Texas House in 2021. Representative Slayton further added, I promised my voters that I would stand up for their values and rights to protect the Texas kids. I was reelected on that promise, and I intend to keep it by authoring legislation to defend kids from being subjected to drag shows and other inappropriate events. I look forward to working with my colleagues to pass this important legislation. So the genital inspection bills, the bills that are banning trans people from getting access to health care, just basically we're seeing a constant torrent the last year and a half, I would say, of mask-off, hateful anti-trans bills getting passed in red states. And they're doing the same on a lot of other issues. A big one, big example is abortion. The big reason why they're trying to get rid of Roe v. Wade is because if they can leave it up to the states, then hard red states can basically implement a fascistic level of far-right policy onto the people who live there because there are so few checks and balances in place to control a mostly red-run state as opposed to a mostly red-run federal government. Here in the federal government, if Republicans are running mostly everything, there is still mostly a system of checks and balances to keep things from completely going to shit. But if we're talking about a more local level, like on a state level, there are protections, there are checks and balances in place, but nowhere fucking near as many. Good filter idea for Shoe. Would this post make Sargon think, oh, I can fix her? Good lord. Yeah, she needs to respond to this. I mean, if she's going to be like a responsible political pundit, she kind of has to. Like, I mean, like, if you're literally influencing politicians to pass bills, then like, yeah, good God. I don't know. Listen, guys, the right is pushing harder than ever to make it so that life as a queer person in America is as miserable, as untenable, and as unlivable as possible. They want trans, gay, queer people of all sorts dead. They want you to kill yourselves or they will kill you themselves. There's a reason they are trying so badly to falsely connect LGBT people with child sexual assault. They want to make it seem like gay people are predators because most of society is already completely okay with, even if it's completely outside of the bounds of the law, murdering, killing, or at the very least engaging in violence towards predators. Remember that story about the football player who killed the guy who raped his daughter and got off for it, and everyone's like, yeah, A-okay. Even I was like, cool, when I heard that story that he killed the guy. Even I had that sort of like gut reaction. If you can cross the wires in people's brains and make them connect pedophile and LGBT, you've got it is completely okay to assault LGBT people, and that's what they're trying to do. And honestly, it's a pretty smart. It's a smart fucking strategy. Xander Hall, did you see the video where the guy was talking about in public wanting to kill the gays? They aren't even hiding it anymore. Oh yeah, I quote tweeted that video. Yeah, I can show that one. So yeah, here it is. Christian fascist leader John Doyle encourages police to, quote, go in there and put bullets in all their heads. That's what the badge is for. This is at a, these are fascist Nazi protesters protesting a pride event. John Doyle's one of the Nazis there, and it's John Doyle that's apparently yelling in this video, so we'll go ahead and listen to this.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, I hate how bureaucratized everything is now. We have to file reports. The sheriffs in Texas today have me go on blessed art thou among women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. That's what the bad is. I'm not trying to be
Yeah, I mean, that's just him saying that they're telling the cops to go put bullets in all their heads. That's what the badges are for. It's what he said. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're brave. This is their Charlottesville. Okay, if I were to like approximate things, I'd say this is like them trying to ramp up their next Charlottesville. Like that's what we're heading towards. Another Charlottesville tier event. I think it's going to be something based around something that's related to what the current topics are about. They're gonna like, you know what I bet they would do? Hold on. Maybe I'm going too far here, but here's what I bet they would do. You know how the right likes to try to appropriate Martin Luther King? What if they try to hold a white supremacist neo-Nazi rally under the name of Martin Luther King Jr., and they do it on Martin Luther King Jr. Day? I feel like they would definitely fucking do that. And they would mask it like very tongue-in-cheek, like smug DreamWorks smile. Oh, it's a Martin Luther King appreciation festival. He loved nationalism and Christianity and American values and the family. I feel like that's some shit that they would do. Oddly specific. You don't know the far right like I do then. If you think that's unreasonable or crazy, you don't know the far right like I do. Bro, they already hate him? Yes, of course they hate MLK, but they love to pretend like MLK agrees with them. They love to pretend like MLK was this moderate, conservative Christian type, when in reality he was a fucking far-left socialist, who yes, was a Christian, but was also, and I want to stress this, a far-left socialist. Listen, guys, if you are trans and you are watching this, if you have the means, you should definitely move to a blue state. I'm sorry, but staying in a red state is not going to help your situation. If you can move, you should move. That's if you can. If you cannot move, I'm going to try to give some advice that can help some of you in perhaps getting lifestyles or jobs that allow you to not risk your health and safety as much, or some tips on how to save up for moving, okay? That face when the just move option becomes the only viable one. Just move is the only viable option if you want to get away from it. Yeah, it's like the time, wait or move is really all you can do. So what I would advise personally, if you're living, let's say you're living in like bumfuck nowhere, Nebraska or something. I don't know, just some middle of nowhere Rust Belt town. You know, you just don't really have a lot of job opportunities there. Very transphobic, very homophobic town, very red town, very scary. Hey, Apillo, you'll be able to get some advice from this as well. The best advice that I can give, especially as a trans person on the internet, if you're a trans person on the internet and you're going around and you're looking for like a way to, well, not even on the internet, to clarify, if you're just a trans person and you are looking to like take care of yourself a little bit better, the first thing I can recommend is get on social media. Get on social media like Twitter and start talking to people and making large friend groups, okay? I know this sounds weird, but like in communities like mine or in Vosh's or in like pro-trans or LGBT communities on Twitter, these are the communities where you can start to grow friend groups that when something happens like your parents kick you out or you lose your job or whatever, you can make a post like, hey, I really need money or I can't pay my bills, and your friends can quote tweet that and retweet it to all of their friends, and hopefully at least a few people will toss a few dollars your way. That can go a long way that you would never expect. Having a few friends, hell, you could just make one good friend through Twitter that's willing to let you live with them. Through Twitter, you could find somebody who lives across the country that's willing to let you be their roommate. Like, I don't know, maybe you can find someone that'll let you be their roommate in California or New York State, somewhere that's pro-LGBT, and you can just be their roommate and work a job. Making friends that live in places where you want to get away, like get to escape to, that is the first step. That is the first step. Wish I had that option. If you're underage, that makes things a lot harder. It's I don't know how much advice I can give. There are a lot of other like resources online that you can find, but like that's one of the biggest ones. I can't tell you how many people that I've retweeted on Twitter that like hit me up in DMs and were like, "Hey, I'm trans. I'm like 17 years old. My parents kicked me out. They found out I was trans and I really need money. I made this post. Could you retweet it?" And I'll just quote tweet it or retweet it or whatever. There's been lots of posts like that, and I'll check on them and see how much money they make, and they'll make a decent amount of money after I retweet them. You guys will go and send some dollary dues their way, and I appreciate that. That kind of stuff does help. I've seen people I've seen people get guided on how to get testosterone and estrogen stuff and hormone blockers, DIY stuff through the internet, right? Like, there's like mutual aid stuff in the online trans community. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely recommend you take that route if you can. Making friends over the internet that can help you out, big help if you're like LGBT and you're stuck in one of these red areas. All right, it is now the next day. A whole day has passed since last stream when I talked about this whole Shoe0nHead Pride Month kink around kids discourse, and how the original images of that particular event that Shoe0nHead shared and got, a lot of eyes onto it, originally only had like a few, I think like 2,000 likes and a few hundred retweets. Shoe0nHead discovered that, and her condemning of that unintentionally, I do believe it was unintentionally, brought it to the eyes of a lot more malicious people than she thought it would. And one of those people was an actual, I believe, Texas Republican who is now making a move to ban all children from being able to attend drag events or any events, I guess, involving drag of any kind. And that may sound reasonable, but there are, of course, completely family-friendly drag events. Not every drag show is super sexual, basically like a stripper routine. Some of them are absolutely appropriate and not sexual whatsoever. Yeah, it's definitely been used in a way that I highly doubt Shoe0nHead agrees with. But that was where we left things yesterday. And we were talking about, is Shoe0nHead going to respond? I hope she does. She's definitely got to. I think she will. Now it's the next day, and she has. So we're going to be going over her response. I'm going to tell you guys what I think, rating her apology. This will either be its own whole segment, or more likely than that, Cherry will stitch this on to the original segment, so and just add a title panel between that says "one day later," from the French narrator from SpongeBob. Let's read the apology. Let's read her statement. Let's see what she has to say. Thank you, Nova Nocturne. I appreciate the $5. Let's see what she has to say. I know I'm not responsible with my platform. I've never been. That's how I became successful. It was an accident. I just vent and post opinions I have in the moment. I use Twitter like a person who has 100 followers. This is a problem, and I'm sorry. I always say never apologize unless you mean it. That's why I haven't apologized for 99% of the stupid and base shit I've said over the years. And that's true. I will never apologize unless I mean it, but I mean it. It's embarrassing to have mental breakdowns in public, but dog piles make me lash out like a child. But I'm old now. I'm an internet grandma. I've never wanted this. My fame was an accident. And lately, I've been self-destructing on here and abandoning YouTube, probably to destroy it. This is not some head-ass YouTuber apology where I say I was in a dark space. Motherfucker, everyone is depressed on this website, Lamau. That is true. No, I'm just tired. I want a home and a family and to be normal. She wants the trad wife life. I never wanted this, and I'm too old for this. Damn. She live in the YouTuber, the big YouTuber lifestyle and doesn't even want it. Suffering from success. I don't take back my opinions, and I'll elaborate on it one day, but I apologize for lashing out and for posting culture war bullshit, which was used by people I despise in a way I never intended. I apologize to people I blocked, including old friends, in the heat of the moment. Alright, overall, I do think this is a pretty decent apology. I even already liked it when I first saw it because I thought it would, show acknowledgement that, because I think, one of the first larger streamers to talk about this on stream. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't really follow many other streamers, so maybe that is the case. I didn't want to give off the impression that I'm just, talking shit for no other reason than, to do so. But I will give a criticism here. Okay? And this is a criticism that I'm sure plenty of you are going to agree with, but I'm sure some of you might disagree with. And I'd be curious to hear what Shoe0nHead's opinion is of this observation. Something that I've noticed, and I don't know if she's doing it here entirely. There's a hint of it here, though I will say this is an improvement because in large part she's taking responsibility. In the last bit here, she does say, I don't take back my opinion, I'll elaborate on it one day, but I apologize for lashing out and for posting culture war bullshit, which was used by people I despise in a way I never intended. And apologize to people I blocked, all that. Yeah, she does own up to what happened because of her actions, but at the same time, something that I've noticed is a trend sometimes, and this isn't her that's done this exclusively. People online have a tendency to do this. Is first I'm going to say this. I'm really, really annoyed by the people that are super hyper puritanical about how you have to run your presentation as an online public figure. That shit is so goddamn annoying. When people say, Zan, why are you vaping on stream? You're a bad influence. Why you smoke weed on stream and encourage your fans to smoke weed? That's a bad influence. It's fuck off, okay? I'm a live streamer. I'm a guy on the internet who uploads YouTube videos and talks about politics to, thousands of people over the internet. It's not that deep. Shoe0nHead, as I was saying, very large public figure. A lot bigger than me, but I think what I said before even applies to her. I don't think that you should hold these public figures to an unattainable standard. Regardless of how many followers you have, you're still a person. You still have the flaws and the completely reasonable expectation of failure or of making mistakes of any other person. Having a big number next to your name on Twitter or on Instagram or on YouTube does not make you any more perfect than anybody else. However, that does not change the fact that the larger that number is next to your name, the more people are watching just about everything you do that goes public. And a lot of those people, maybe not all of them, perhaps even just a small fraction of them, but still a sizable portion of people, view someone like, say, Shoe0nHead as a role model or as somebody who they get their news from, somebody who they can trust, somebody who is not biased by the establishment bought and paid for media, who can, at the very least give them a surface level understanding of some issues in an entertaining way, right? And I think that's a reasonable interpretation of what the average Shoe0nHead fan is like, right? Somebody who, trusts Shoe0nHead to unbiasedly, separate from the bought and paid for mainstream, corporate media, give them a fairly surface level, decent explanation of a certain story or news event, like in the Hell World videos, with it being quite entertaining and funny. That's what you expect from a Shoe0nHead video, or from any of her content, even from her tweets. The problem is when people get their opinions from you, many people do get their opinions from Shoe0nHead, that does mean that, and this doesn't matter who we're talking about here, it does mean that, I think, personally, you start to have a level of responsibility for your messaging. Now, in the case of Shoe0nHead here, this was obviously a mistake on her end. I do think that the thing that she was calling out in isolation is something that probably shouldn't be defended. The whole, it's not gonna lick itself, come on, guy. That was pretty cringe. But the outcome that occurred was still a large YouTuber and public figure influencing an actual anti-trans bill being pushed in the state of Texas. That's a big fucking deal. When you accidentally have influence on discriminatory legislation being passed by the state government, woo, that's a bit of a step up. You can't really make the argument that YouTubers don't have a responsibility for their messaging anymore. I don't want to just like give her like a little, oh no, it's okay, like pat in the head, because I feel like people accuse me all the time of like, oh, if somebody else did half the things Shoe0nHead does, Xander Hall would crucify them. And it's like, I don't think I would. I feel like I'm pretty reasonable. I feel like I'm being pretty firm but fair here, right? I feel like sometimes Shoe0nHead, and that's why I'm prefacing that, will do this thing where, I'm sure you've seen it, sort of like, well, there you go. I don't even need to say anything. It's right there in the bio. Bimbo populist. Yeah, she kind of plays into like sort of an ironic bimbo, I'm dumb, haha aesthetic for when people will shit talk her a lot of the time. She has fallen back on, I'm just a dumbass on the internet. What do you expect from me? As a defense for things before. And other times I've seen her very authoritatively act as though those that disagree with her on an issue are like ontologically evil. And no act of violence done against them, any act of violence done against them can be morally justified. So on one hand, she feels very, very, confident in all of her positions and confident enough to, in many cases, extremely strongly, go against people on Twitter, quote tweet them, shit talk them, block them. But then on the other hand, when it's one of those cases where, she can't really die on the hill and she's kind of got to admit, fuck, I really fucked up here, then sometimes she'll fall back on the, well, I'm, like a bimbo populist, right? She didn't do that here, though. She didn't do that here. She owned up to it. She said, no, what I did had this effect, and I'm really sorry that happened, and here's why it's been happening, and here's how I've felt lately, and frankly, I think this is a pretty good apology. What happened is still very bad, and I do think that what I think is probably the biggest takeaway from this isn't so much like anything to do with Shoe0nHead herself. I think that this is more so a perfect demonstration of, yep, political YouTubers do have an effect. YouTubers do need to be careful with their messaging. Even just a tweet, if you've got a big enough number next to your name, can influence a fucking law. And anytime someone tries to claim otherwise in the future, at the very least, we'll be able to point to this example right here. And maybe that's sort of a silver lining of it, Now, here's where we have to get spicy, okay? Here's where we have to get spicy. It is easy for me, okay? It is easy for me, Xander Hall, to say Shoe0nHead's all right, whatever, yada yada. I forgive her, whatever, right? It's easy for me to say that. But there are a lot of trans people in the state of Texas that are now going to see news stories on their local news stations about the bill that is being pushed forward to ban children from being present at any drag queen event. A bill that, in the wording of the bill, designates trans people as high risk of being predators towards children, and they're going to see that on the news and think every time, thanks, Shoe0nHead. And frankly, I don't know if they'll forgive Shoe0nHead, and I don't know if they even should.
Welcome to capitalism, Medusa.
Because they're going to get it pretty fucking bad. If this bill passes, and even if it doesn't, it's just going to suck. And I don't know if it's really my call, I guess, so to say whether or not this is a good or bad response. I guess, I don't usually do the defer to a trans person's opinion on things, but, legitimately, this is a case where I'd be like, go find the YouTube channel of a trans person from Texas and ask them what their opinion is on this, because really, they're going to have the best opinion on this apology, because they're the ones that are truly going to be affected by the outcomes of, Shoe0nHead's tweet. However, in a vacuum, me personally knowing Shoe0nHead to a tenuous degree, and just my personal insight for what it's worth to you guys, I think that it was a pretty good response, and I do think it was genuine. And there's only so much that you can do to make up for something like that. Let's be real, chat. it's pretty wild to expect your tweet to get seen by a state official and to have it influence a bill like that to get pushed through like the state senate. Like, that's fucking insane. No one would expect that, especially not Shoe0nHead. Could she have prevented it by being more responsible? Absolutely. Absolutely. And people have told her to be more responsible for a very long time, and they've warned her something like this would happen, and now it's happened. But hopefully the bill doesn't get passed, and hopefully the best possible outcome occurs. If not, though, you know who to come to hear the news and hear it as it happens. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this segment, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon, follow my social media, and of course, you can support me financially by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or donating through my website, through Streamlabs, Stream Elements, YouTube, Twitch, or through Patreon. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.